Hello, everyone. So, I was thinking I would do something slightly different today. It's just a reading I want to share because I noticed this energy that's been going around, and I wanted to kind of quickly, as best as I can, show what's happening in the skies. Okay, so I'm just going to open up the chart here. Just one chart. I go into a lot of details usually, but this time I'm gonna tone it down. So, welcome to my channel. For those who don't know who I am, my name is Jose. I am a micro astrologer, and I like to go into so much detail that it takes hours to do a reading because it's detailed. It gets tempting, by the way, to read a lot, but I know there's a lot of people who are developing sort of ADHD like symptoms, and they can't really focus, and they get all like they zone out or their eyes like go like or something like that they're not focused. So it's one of those things that I have to adapt to. But for those who like detailed readings and I want to make use of the knowledge, that's fine. I'm not going to contest all that stuff. But speaking of contesting, this is exactly what I was looking at. So let me share the chart here. Let's see here. So what I've seen here so far is okay. So we have what's going on with the past. Past stuff is happening here. Little things of the past are happening. We have here in the corner South Node, conjunct Tisiphone, Orcus, Loki. So we're being challenged to question our own integrity, specifically with the little things we do every day, behaviors that things we do every day on a usual basis. Small things, that's very much Virgo. Um, Also, things that have to do with, watching out for things. That's Orcas, surveillance, watching over, being on guard, but also kind of contesting things and questioning, and also kind of a lot of provocations happening. Tisiphone is one of the Furies. Loki, Loki, the god of mischief. That's what it is too. Loki is like that. He's provocative. He tests things. He goes like this. He pokes things. That's exactly what it says in the Icelandic sagas or the Norse sagas. Um, and Mars here as well. So there's a lot of things like people arguing. I was actually going to look into Lilith as well because Lilith, the asteroid, is about vilifying. I've seen this quite often, and that is one of the things that we're going through right now. So little things that are happen, little things in Pisces. So, but it's retrograde. So being questioned to find our own inner truth, our own inner um, what we believe in. This is in Pisces. So there's a disillusion of victimization as well. But it's trying to help me out, not retrograde. So there's a lot of shifting going on, a lot of transformation. Plus, it's in Scorpio. I believe it started going direct a while ago. Um, so here we have Lilith also square. It's funny, square Lempo, Uranus, Sedna. So a lot of metamorphosis happening through the nervous system in society. But it's funny how Lempo is right here. Lempo is actually one of the Finnish gods. He's all about just pushing through regardless of anything. But Lempo is actually specifically about also that whole thing about provocation. But it's he's like caution, coercion, and cooperation. So sometimes you'll have things that don't make sense. He's all Lempo is about universal language. Like it's okay to have mistakes. It's okay to make these things. It's okay. That's the point of Lempo. Lempo is like kind of like almost like Sedna, actually. So there's multiple sides to love. So we're being questioned to transform what we are going through. Lempo is a dwarf planet. It's way out there. So and we're trying to adjust through that whole thing with our love with ourselves, love for other people, specifically because it's still in Taurus. So the love of like simplicity or, usually has a lot to do with forms. But Lempo is also tied to um, love itself, like camaraderie, groups, friends. That also includes belief systems, okay? System changes. So it's tied to art, literature, music, theater, all that stuff as well. Okay, the natural world, underworld as well. So pretty much all around nature, cross-cultural connections, okay, international relations, that's also part of that. Okay. Heritage sharing. So gatherings, communes, communities are changing. Said that here, Uranus's conjunct said that it's already in Gemini. So there's a shift in communications, short distance traveling, roads, highways, um, telecommunications companies, how we relate to each other, but particularly with anything with entertainment, literature, arts, dancing, music, farming, um, but also with listening. This is tied to Taurus here, the listening part, and the talking, which is Gemini, right here in the face. The face is more Aries, but I believe it's also Gemini. So something about communication, definitely the mouth area, the neck also as well. Lymph nodes is also Taurus, I believe. Uh, let's see here. So, and it's actually interesting because these three planets, Lampos, Uranus, Sedna, are sextile to the sun right now in Leo. So that means that there's an opportunity for governments to work on this as well, like heads of state, rulers, ruling bodies, um, people, leaders, basically, people in authority, position, authority. They have an opportunity to go through that, okay, to actually change all that, to make all these changes and adapt to these changes. But again, it's working with the nervous system. So, what did I see here? So, North Node opposite of this whole South Node in Virgo with Mars disappoint Orcus Loki shows me that it's time for us to release. We're here to release that stuff. Let's look at the little things too, yes, but let's not nitpick. That's the message I'm getting here, right? Because when we start to nitpick at the little things, we start to, just go like, oh, you did this wrong, you did this, and so and right now with Pallas Athena in retrograde in Aquarius, there's a retrograde there. So that means there's doubts in what we're learning from this whole thing. How do we find our own inner sovereignty, our own sense of leadership? So this actually combines, it's really connected to also things of like coaching or advisory or counseling sort of nature. Okay. And we're being called to find our inner prudence, our inner knowledge, wisdom, creativity, intuition. Like, do we have to be defensive or offensive at all? Right. So it's trying to really find what's hidden beneath us. Athena was the one who came out of Zeus's head, um, and kind of she didn't have anyone technically to birth her. So it's working also the masculine energy, right? Using the divine feminine to recreate the divine masculine. So but it's in retrograde. So we kind of feel like we're not there yet as a society. It's in Aquarius, so that means it's communities, it's society, it's the world. It's also with young people. Um, so it's tied a lot to figuring out what that means for us and our potential, right? Instead of saying that resisting even the ego itself, to be honest, because it's like, what ego, right? We sometimes neglect like this. Oh, we don't want ego, I'm gonna rise up, or the opposite completely happens. No, we have to balance that. One of the things, the hidden things about Aquarius is that people don't realize that they have two ruling planets, the conservative planet Saturn and the how do you call this? The revolutionary planet Uranus. So there has to be a balance. People forget that Aquarius also likes looking into the past. I don't know if people knew that, but that's what it means. It means that it's okay to look back into your past and learn from that. You can't move on no, without looking back at your past. It's almost tied a lot to shadow work as well. So, So a lot of movements, independence movements, tied to this whole Palace Athena thing as well. Nonprofit organizations, probably the justice systems. So human rights system, justice systems, anything to do with that is adapting to the changes or the things that we look back into the past, like war is also part of this one. This is, of course, this is God of War, right? Aries, sorry, Mars. So we're having to adapt to these things as a culture. That's where people see that already. People are seeing that it's like, oh, we're trying to find where's the wisdom in this? So I can't find it again because it's retrograde. So they're just gonna be here for a while until we finally see their inner wisdom. So let's not look into each other too much, but go inwards. Right? That's exactly what that means. I also saw here that there's something to do with provocations with beliefs, travel, philosophy, businesses. This is Magaira retrograde. So we might get sort of an inner provocation, like our belief systems might be put into question, be put on the stand, if you will, right? Opposite of harmonia. So there's this thing where it's like we want peace with the way we communicate, but and it's in Gemini, harmonia. Harmonia is not just about peace. Harmonia is kind of there's a part of it that's kind of an escapist. It's almost like, when it's not peaceful, I run away from it. Mhm. But it's sometimes when the air becomes stagnant, that's the other things too. Okay. So this is where harmonia represents the shadow of peace, unexpected chaos. Okay. Um, so with this one, when it comes to the world, it also represents things that are um, true to ourselves, because harmonica represents denial of truth, expectations. This also represents things like processions, entourages. I don't know how this is tied to the Megara thing. Oh, okay, so I guess there's like sort of protection going on. Let me see if this is trying to Makimaki. Okay, where is this? So Harmonia is trying to Makimaki. So like I guess finding different relationships, how to communicate with them, because Makimaki is kind of going beyond. Makimaki is reaching for above just knowledge and wisdom. It's kind of like automatic downloads, really real connection to your, I guess you can say, your metaphysical self, right? Uh, okay. Or harmonia is also about equality. So anti-autocracy, propaganda, okay, indoctrination, government rule, status quo, okay, civil liberties, bribery, corruption, negotiations, peace talks, or summits, consensus. Um, which is funny because it's trying to Makemake in Libra. So Makemake here showing that there's different ways to go about finding peace instead of just finding peace for the sake of peace. So here we're trying to um, Makemake here kind of brings about self-creative abilities. It's also about trusting the inner self. Again, it's the same thing. Trusting your inner creative power, your divinity, cosmic galactic insights and knowledge. Okay, inspiration. People refer to this as if it's like, oh, it's out there, but it's actually inside, right? So, all those things that kind of like we don't know yet, like we're getting, it's like trust those, right? Trust your intuition. Mm. But this is also to do with the world, like international relationships. That's also Makemake, heritage, ancestry, the natural world. Again, this is coming up again. Agricultural things, fishing industry, fertility. We can say celibacy is part of this one as well. Winning and losing. That's a big one, right? So just that, it's almost like I have to win or I can't lose. It's like, doesn't matter. Makimaki is teaching it. It's just like, no, it doesn't matter what that is. Mm. This also ties to, I believe it's tied to single fathers, singlehood, being single, right? So um, we're kind of fighting this whole thing in seeing. See, Makimaki is actually square, core, fixed. Ixian fullest right now. So it's almost like we're going against the system, traditionalized system of making mistakes at the fullest because we've experienced violations as Ixion, being ourselves and core and connecting. But being single doesn't mean necessarily mean being single forever. It means that we're honoring ourselves before we look for that relationship. Okay. Um, so this is also tied to multicultural stuff. So friendships all over the world, companionship, communities. So it's funny how this is also really tied to the Pluto and Uranus placement that's in retrograde right now. We're being called to work through anything toxic and release all that shit and really own our power, own our power, own our power. My telling you all this will not really help you unless you suffer and suffer and suffer until you get tired of it. Listen to that, until you're sick and tired of it and you actually want genuine change. Because that's what I did. Last year, I made a decision, and it was just this huge pull. I was just like, no, I'm not going to give into that anymore. Even if I kind of fail a little bit once in a while, but I'm still working on it. So the point is, I'm working on it, and it's a work in progress. But I decided to say, okay, even if I fall into the victimhood mode, that's okay. I get back up. I get back up, and you get better at it. Actually, it takes practice, but it won't happen just by telling yourself that. You have to go through the emotions. So I do things like the cold shower, well, Wim Hof method, the breathing first and then the cold shower. There's benefit to that. Look it up, right? So this is the time of sovereignty. So we're still used to being not having that energy from the past of like being dependent on others. Leo, the age of Leo, the age of Cancer. It's like almost like family has become this thing where it's like we become too dependent on it. It's codependency. And then Gemini just kind of flow with it and just all that stuff. Now we're trying to restructure or rather reform what it means to have that sovereignty. Right? We've gone through a lot of like at least the last 12,000 years of unhealthy ego. It's time to have a healthier ego and say, I co-create, but I also co-creation has nothing to do with dependency. Co-creation is understanding my role in this human body, in this form, is what it is. I don't question anything that does and does what it tells me. But through that, I also listen. I know that doesn't make sense right now, probably for those who are reading this or watching this. That's fine. But really, what it is, it's just silence is the key. And the only way to get to real silence and is when you're tired of having to hear those stories in the head of the unhealthy ego. So anyways, that's what I'm going through. That's what I'm kind of expressing right now. So, and it's funny because it's like Mars having connected itself to going back to the chart to the South Node. We look at our Eris is in conjunction to Chiron right now. So a lot of wounding, like kind of questioning of wounding, like inner questioning, instead of like we're being tested eternally. So we're trying to process it, right? It's actually, and Mars rules Aries. So Eris and Aries, Chiron and Aries, are actually square to Sun and also square Pluto right now. So there's this huge thing with the ego, huge thing right now. And there's a lot of like, it's actually a T square right now. You see that? Chiron is pulling at us to be honest with what is that inner power. Eris is inner power. When you question your inner power, you question power itself, like real power. And then you want to control, you want to be tyrannical, you want to see those bloodied soldiers on the field. That's what Eris did. So it's working through the pain of sovereignty, the loss of freedom. But is that freedom that we think it is? Or is it the freedom that we feel it can possibly and will be? It's a choice. This is all about choices now. So, I mean, you probably heard of it. We're in this age of choice. Okay? So, but you can't just say, I'm not giving away my power. You can't just say that and word it it out. Not only is it how do you put into practice, but it also has to be embodied through the emotions. If that means more suffering, so be it. I know that's controversial for some, That's what it is. Because when you've had enough, right? Even if you tried, and this is going to sound really extreme, even if you tried committing suicide, it's not going to work. You will just decide to say, I don't know, I didn't learn my lesson. I'm going to come back and learn my lesson. Anyways, it's not for me to question people's choices at all because it's not. I, just this whole thing about what we're learning now has a lot to do with going back down to being present. Okay, so I'm going to stop my sharing here. It all comes down to being present. It all comes down to um, being aware of. It's not awareness here. It's not a mind thing. Okay, it's your attention. I was telling a student this, and he said, "Okay, it's where you bring your attention to." Many people still are not aware of this. We want to escape, and I include myself in this one because I know what it's like to be like, "Oh, there's that next TV show, there's that next drama, that stuff," right? So, um, but then I get reminded again. It's like, what? Wait, process the emotions, go through it, heal, and it's okay if sometimes you make mistakes. You forget your scheduled meditation. You schedule this, and you don't get to heal. It's fine. There is no judgment. There is no judgment at all. The only people judging ourselves is ourselves and other people, and that's it. That's the only thing. And when an animal looks at you, they're not really judging you. We just think there's like, why are you looking at me? They're not really doing that. They're just kind of just being present. Like it feels kind of like it's an empty reaction, reaction, but it's not a reaction, right? So it comes back down to being present, 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 and not just in terms of like linear time perspective. I mean, through the body, you bring your attention to the body first, the breath, and then from there you start to realize more. Try Wim Hof method, do that whole thing. But it's really up to you. It's the age of choice. So whatever resonates with you will come in time. Will come in time. Um, I'm just reading what I'm reading from the charts. There will be people who will be demonizing others, blah blah blah, all this stuff. I'm like, not gonna get into the drama. The best way is first to start, maybe not to get into the drama. Turn off the TV, turn off the internet, go out in nature, like what I've been trying to do it. So that's good. It feels so good. It feels so good to be out there. And that's it. Um, yeah. Anyways, I went into a lengthy reading. Thank you for watching. Comment down below, like and subscribe. I will see you guys later.